This is the Mickey Miles and More podcast, your one stop for information on Disney races, Disney vacations, Disney theme parks, and more. Now, here are your hosts for the Mickey Miles and More podcast, Michelle Scribner-McLean, Chris Eliopoulos, and Mike Scopa.
Welcome home, Milers, and welcome back to another episode of Mickey Miles and More, a podcast where three friends talk about the Disney parks, the Disney races, and whatever else comes up. I'm Chris Eliopoulos, and with me, as always, is Dr. Michelle Scribner. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, Christopher. How are you? Christopher of the newly renovated kitchen that only took 19 months, right?
Well, I was going to say, while you guys were off having fun, I was getting a whole kitchen replacement, so it was not
done?
All but like a couple of cabinet doors have to be replaced, have to be swapped out, but yeah, That's pretty much done.
But you can cook in there again.
Yeah, everything is working. Everything is functioning and livable, and we've got stuff in cabinets. So, but yeah, man, you learn a lot. Like, I think I gained 10 pounds because we're just eating crap for 4 months because you can't cook, you can't refrigerate. You know, the microwave isn't there, so it was just...
Oh, you can't refrigerate, yeah. Oh.
For a while, we went for a couple of months without a refrigerator. We were using sort of like a wine refrigerator down in the garage just to kind of keep some things going. But yeah, it was just awful.
Oh, well.
How is everything with you? Are you rested and ready to go?
I am rested. I have read so many novels in the past month. Forgetting what day of the week it is. It's awesome.
That's good.
Yes,
that's the best part of vacation.
Very rested. I was very happy to come home, so that's good. I think that's
it's usually the sign, right?
Yeah.
So also with us is the Dean of Disney, Mr. Mike Scopa. How was your vacation, Michael?
Hi, Chris. I cringe at the word replacement, but we can talk about that offline. It was a very interesting, eye-opening, and it's an interesting experience. You never cease to learn something more about taking a Disney vacation and coming back with some knowledge that you would like to share with some listeners.
Well, we should go through real quick as an overall recap, Michelle. What exactly did you guys do? I know you went to Vero Beach. You went to Disney World. You went on a cruise back to Vero Beach and another cruise. Is that?
That's not all of it.
Oh, geez.
So it was Vero Beach and then Beach Club for 6 or 7 days for the 4th of July. Then I flew back to New Hampshire, and Mike went to an Airbnb. And at some point there was COVID, both of us caught on the 4th of July. And then my son Liam joined us, and then we went to another Airbnb where Mike's daughter and her family joined us, their first time at Walt Disney World, the kids, not his daughter. And then from there it was Bay Lake Towers for just a few days. Thank you, Disney Vacation Club, because that was a lot of our stuff. And then it was a thrice canceled Disney Fantasy trip. So we're on the Disney Fantasy in the Caribbean for 7 days, 2 days back at Vero Beach, and then what we thought was going to be our only cruise this summer, which was the Wish for 4 days, and then drove back to New Hampshire. Almost got into a car accident in New Jersey.
Of course, Jersey drivers.
Oh my God, it was probably one of the scariest. I was driving, one of the scariest things I've seen. But anyway, we're home safely, and
wow,
yeah,
but that was a trip and a half, man.
It was a lot of traveling.
Like, you've been gone a while.
Too much. It was too much. Too much for me. Yeah.
I don't know. I usually was hitting Disney trips by day like 10 or 11. When I was doing the longer trips, I was done. So I can't imagine 2 months. I mean, I know you were doing a variety of things, but should we cover a little bit of the Disney World experience? Like, did you feel like you want to talk about it, or is it just sort of repeating the same old stuff?
I think we should definitely talk about it. I think it would take several episodes to talk about it. I think that one of the things that I'm sure Mike will chime in that was interesting for me was doing it with different family members and the Genie Plus experience and trying to navigate around getting everybody in your party. And this person wants to do Rock and Roller Coaster, and this person wants to do Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Um, that was confusing, and it took a lot of organization to do that. Getting park reservations wasn't as difficult as I thought, but that was one of the things where, before it's just been Mike and I, um, but trying to make, as Benjamin Franklin would say, make 6 clocks chime at the same time was really tricky when people have different needs, and I'm sure it's the same way with any family. So it was a more strategic use of Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, but it was a day-to-day thing based on how people were feeling and what happened before. So, for example, we would say, "Oh, Animal Kingdom, Genie Plus, not Genie Plus. Do we want to do it? Well, what are the things that we would benefit from?" 2 people wanted to go on Expedition Everest. Nobody else did. Well, let's just do single rider. So no Genie Plus. But then Guardians of the Galaxy, we want to make sure we get into that. So that meant getting up at 7, getting in, either a virtual queue or doing Lightning Lane. And then things would happen like Guardians of the Galaxy would shut down. So it's just this whole big organizational thing that I found exhausting, but I'm sure Mike would agree that I think the family felt like they did everything that they wanted to do in the 8 days they were there.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that was reinforced to me on this trip was how much of a pain it is to visit Walt Disney World if you're not staying on the property. It's very exhausting, and it makes you change the way you actually plan your day. And what I mean, Chris, is that if you're staying at the Yacht Club or the Beach Club, you hop over to Epcot, come back, maybe hop over to Magic Kingdom or wherever, any theme park. And it's kind of different when you are 6, 7, 8 miles away and you have to drive and you have to park in the parking lot and then you have to go. It makes you think, if I do any park hopping, I'm going to go early in the morning. I'm going to leave as soon as I can, realizing that I've done whatever I would have liked to have done for that particular number of hours I'm in the park. Maybe leave about 1 o'clock, get back to Airbnb or off property, relax for about 3 hours, then go back for the nighttime. Whereas I don't think you go through that kind of a exercise if you're staying on the property, because you do have Disney transportation. You're very close to the parks. So that was reinforced. But to Michelle's point, I think that the Genie Plus, Disney Genie and Disney Genie Plus, I'm kind of a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say in favor of it, but I can see some benefits from it. And I think that what Michelle said is very important, and that is that you have to take each day, take a look at it, and see if there's something that you can get from it. For instance, I think that Genie Plus is a definite need for Rise of the Resistance or Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that those two right off the bat are really good with Disney Genie Plus, and maybe even Minnie and Mickey's Runaway Railway, but not for every park.
I think that your family would have said it was awesome. It helped us do what we wanted to do.
Yeah. I think that Disney Genie Plus is built for the Magic Kingdom and for Disney Hollywood Studios, but I would not say it's built for Epcot or.
Yeah, because we walked
Disney
right on
Kingdom.
Soarin'. I will say that the value of the Airbnb, we had 6 people, 4 bedrooms, and a pool and a big kitchen, and it was about 15-minute ride away. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Right now you can't get something at All Stars for that. Basically, you'd be getting just a room. So it was nice in that way, but you could see, especially with people who hadn't been there before, that there was something that they missed out on, because you couldn't go back and forth. and having to buy groceries and things like that. That was helpful, but also it's like, oh, what a pain this is. Another thing we figured out on the first day, we're taking 2 cars. I have an annual pass. Mike has an annual pass. They didn't have an annual pass, so every day I had to ride with them so they could get free parking, because over 8 days that adds up. So it was things like that it was constantly, trying to work it out. I think we both thought at the end that it would have been better. Not that we had a great time staying all together, but it would have been a better experience for the kids if they stayed on Disney property. So there's a lot to unpack and a lot to talk about, using Airbnbs and stuff like that.
Right.
But one thing that I will say is, and this is the second year in a row, gosh, was it nice to have our own car there versus a rental car. It just feels like an extension of your home versus, a smelly rental car that costs a ton of money. So, of course, we were there for a long time, so it was essential. But
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. I want to talk about, different dining experiences, the heat, and how I think we should have handled the heat a little bit differently.
I will say that in my 47 plus years of visiting Walt Disney World, this summer seems to have the lightest crowd. And that might be because of the capacity issues or the way the park reservation system worked. But I noticed that it really wasn't as crowded as I've seen it in the past. Even from last year, Chris, I think it was even when you were there last year, last summer, and it was even less crowded than last year.
Wow.
I thought it was just as crowded, if not more.
Yeah.
So I disagree.
And between 1:30 and 2:30, there was a lull because people were park hopping at that point.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we are sort of at the point where it's too much planning involved for everything. I miss the idea of just spontaneously going to a park,
Right.
spontaneously going on a ride. Like, it sounds like you have to really get a spreadsheet going and figuring out your days. And it almost feels like this is turning into a location that you go with a small group and for shorter day, like for fewer days.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like that's the change in the type of vacations that that you should take when you go down there without getting frustrated.
I'll tell you, Chris, there was no way. I mean, I can't see how something like a Mouse Fest or a reunion would work with the park reservation system and Disney Genie and Genie Plus now. I don't see how that would work smoothly at all right now.
The glory days.
Yeah, the
Glory
good
days.
old days.
I will say that one big disappointment that we had was I'm sure I mentioned this to you. We thought we had more time to go to resorts and hang out. And we thought, let's go to Victoria Falls Lounge at Animal Kingdom, which we've done before. Have a drink, walk around Animal Kingdom Lodge, which is so nice. Look at the animals, or APs, DVC. We were not staying on property at that point. Or were we? We may have been. I'm not sure it made a difference, but we have done this before. Just go to a resort and hang out without a reservation or dinner reservation. We drove up and they said, absolutely not. You cannot come in. Plenty of parking there. We were so are you kidding me? We want to spend our money. I think last year we actually went and got a drink and sat by the pool for a bit. And we were just, that really just was like a big slap in the face. And we have our two of our friends who are now staying at Boulder Ridge, and they had a similar experience yesterday. Again, APs, DVC, what? Why? I'm not really sure why. So that was a disappointment.
So Chris, I was thinking, so we drove up to the God Shack, and she said, well, you have to either be a guest or you have to have a reservation at one of the restaurants. And I immediately started thinking about something to say, but I didn't want to be a jerk. I would have said, well, then if a bus is coming from a theme park and on that bus are passengers or guests who have neither a room reservation nor a restaurant reservation, are you going to pull them off the bus and say you can't go in? So obviously it's a parking issue.
Oh yeah.
But the Animal Kingdom, Kidani Village probably has a parking issue, but the Animal Kingdom Lodge really doesn't have a parking issue. Now, if you're talking beach club, you're talking yacht club, you're talking monorail resorts, yeah, they do have, but it just seemed like, really kind of thought all the money that we've been throwing your way all these years, and
Well, it's kind of sound like
annual
that somebody's been
pass.
taking advantage and they're just now
Yeah.
sewing up that loophole or whatever. I mean, it used to be, right? You go to the yacht or the beach to park because it was free, and you could go right off to the parks, or even over down on any of the monorail hotels. You could just go park there, and right? Didn't we have problems? You'd have problems if you were trying to go to Poly, right? Like people tried to
Polly
get in there.
was the toughest one.
Yeah.
And
I'd
yeah.
say contemporary,
Contemporary
too.
was
Yeah,
tough to although-
I do understand that.
Yeah.
I get that. That's a very small parking lot in front of Bay Lake Tower, Contemporary.
back in the 90s,
But-
I park at the Contemporary all the time.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know. So anyway,
So it was an interesting. I mean, we could probably go on for days about your different parts of the trip, but we should really get into the thing I hate most, which is the cruises. You had a chance to basically do back-to-back cruises on 2 different ships, and get to see the good, the bad, the ugly of both. So why don't you, Michelle, explain the first ship
Yeah.
that you went on? And
so the first ship was the Fantasy. So we went on the 2 newest ships. The Fantasy was scheduled 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, and was canceled 2 times. And then we had thought that it was going to go last summer. So we thought we would do the Fantasy last summer, and we'd never been on a brand new ship. So we decided to do the Wish, and it turns out the Fantasy trip was canceled. So they both ended up being just 2 days apart. So here's the part that sort of made springs pop out of our heads. We both caught COVID around the 4th of July, and that involves, for cruising, at least right now when we're recording this, more documentation than I needed to get my passport. So we were so lucky, and I can't thank her enough. And I think it's a reason to have a travel agent. Our MEI travel agent, Amanda Gonzalez, we told her we had COVID, and she said, drop everything right away. You need to get a positive PCR test, because we had just done the home test. And we said, what? She said, you have to have it documented, because you fall into another category of not just vaccinated, COVID recovering. So we both I was in New Hampshire at that point recovering. Mike was still in Florida. We both had to right away go and get a test that said that we were positive. Having done that, and she walked us through everything. We also then, after we had been recovering, we had to go get another test to say that we were recovering and that we were clear to sail. So we did that, and I got there, and I was 9 days out. Mike was 10 days out because he was positive before me. And they almost didn't let me do it because you had to be 10 days out. So that's another thing for everybody to know, is that, like, if you have to get that certificate of recovery, it has to be 10 days out. Now, Amanda recommended that we did Buena Vista Healthcare, which I'm sure if you have driven around Disney property, you know exactly where it is. It was fabulous. They were great. So it was like a walk-in clinic that we had to go, and they didn't take a COVID test. They just looked at our positive test and, did an examination, asked us some questions. Then we got this document. So not to get into all the problems now, but you had to submit the positive test, the test that you're free to clear to sail.
Wait, is it
And-
positive test or a negative test?
A positive test. You had to, because now we're in a different category that we are recovering. So they
Okay.
have a category called 90-day recovering. Sounds like we have
Oh,
some-
okay.
we're
I
in
thought they want to know that
a
you're
clinic
negative.
or something. No,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want, that's the thing. It's counterintuitive. They want to see that you're positive, what date you're positive. And then you're 90 days out. They will take you as long as you have this other thing from another doctor, and they have all these categories, all these things
Oh,
they have to
Lord.
be on there. You have to have this, you have to have this, you have to have certificate of health. Hang on. And so you had to have the positive test, the certificate of health saying that you're free to travel, and also still all of your COVID vaccine documentation. And then it gets submitted and you wait. And you wait till somebody looks at it. And a few days later, you get a yes or you get a no. So here's the thing. We did it for the fantasy. We got a yes, right? We did it for the wish, submitted all the same documentation. Well, it turns out they gave us a no. So we're checking in on cruise day and they said, you are not free to go. And they had like people running over from the health tent. It turns out that the certificate of health that the doctor did, he said, Michelle is free to travel on, I don't know what it was, like July 15th. She's okay. He didn't date the letter. He didn't put a date on the letter saying like it was July 12th or whatever it was. It was
Right.
July 15th that day. So they almost denied us. And I said, well, wait a second. We were on a ship 2 days ago and we used the same documentation. So, oh, what a headache, Chris. Just the protocols around COVID were enough. Like our lovely travel agent for both trips sent us bottles of champagne in our cabin. And we're like, let's open this up right away.
We need it, right?
We're like, are you kidding me? You're not going to let us on the ship with the same paperwork. So get a positive test if you've had it within 90 days. Go to a doctor, get that certificate of health that has a date on it, and make sure that they're accepting your documentation. You'll get an email. Wasn't that stressful, Mike?
Yes, it was. I wanted to make, you did a great job, Michelle, of explaining everything. I wanted to make 2 comments. Luckily, we had a car so I could drive around and get the PCR test at a CVS and also go to that health clinic or whatever. But one of the things I wanted to mention to everyone, again, the whole idea here is that we're trying to help those who are going to be going ahead. I called my primary care once I tested positive and I said, what should I do? And they said, well, you can get this Paxlovid stuff. And I said, okay. So they,
If the symptoms get worse.
yeah, whatever. And so I said, okay, can you send the prescription to the CVS that's close by? And they did. And then I got a call back and they said, we want you to know something though. With this Paxlovid, there's a possibility you could get a rebound like the Bidens did. You know?
Right.
So the thing is, Chris, I picked up the prescription and I never opened the box. I said to myself, it would just be my luck. I take it and then a few days before the cruise or a day of the cruise, I'm positive again. So I never took it. And I think COVID lasted 5.
Their doctors to decide.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just talk to your primary care. Make sure you understand the whole thing.
I want to mention one other thing as a tip because of this whole experience. I had everything digitally recorded on my phone, so I was able to find it and show them. And the lady with whom we worked at Disney Cruise was great. And she, we were off to the side in the section of people who, had done something wrong or whatever. But Mike had the paper documentation of everything, and that really helped out too. So we had digital, but we also had paper. So you don't want to pay all this money and then be told you're out of luck.
Yeah. And that's going to be like nerve wracking. You're trying to get onto this ship and you're just, oh my God, I may not get on. And you like, that's real relaxing.
It was not relaxing, but luckily we had champagne waiting for us. So that was good. And a cheese plate.
Oh, the important stuff.
Oh, I'll tell you, our best travel agent ever. So do you want to hear sort of overall impressions?
Yeah. Do you want to go each ship and then we'll do negatives on each ship?
Do we want to talk about the fantasy?
I think we can talk about the wish and how it differs from fantasy.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my 9th cruise. My 9th cruise is my last gold cruise. And next time I get platinum. So I'm, I've been on a lot of cruises before. The first thing and I think Becky talked about this, it was like they completely redesigned the ship. It was so confusing. Nothing was the same. Nothing was where you thought it would be.
Right was left, up was down.
Yeah. One of the things that they did is even like all the cast member uniforms are completely different. So when you go on other Disney ships, the activities people all have red and blue shirts with white shorts. Like they're all dressed differently. They're all dressed as Mike will say, more elegantly. But one of the things I liked when I first got on the ship was they reimagined the whole main foyer area, the grand entrance, where they really took advantage of the space that people travel through when they first get on the ship. And many times during their voyages, there's a stage there. There's like there's a main stage where they often have entertainment or characters. There's another little sort of like balcony where characters come. And there's just much more use of that space. It makes a lot more sense. They have there's a statue in every ship that's sort of like the ambassador, and it was Cinderella. She looks a little creepy. Her eyes look a little creepy, but behind her they had like her two little mice friends and a cat. So anyway, it was a nice area. Just everything from the lights to the floor, everything's different, and that's just the first part of it. There's a lot of other different things.
Talking about the Wish, the theme is Cinderella, and there's Cinderella's color all throughout the ship. It's almost as if you're in Cinderella's castle, with a few exceptions. But it's very, very, I mean, the first word that came to mind was elegant. Yeah, it's brand new, it's shiny and everything, but it seemed like they, to Michelle's point, they really made it feel like just very, very elegant luxury hotel / mall. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was very, very much a step up from the Fantasy.
So one of the things that they changed is they have much more luxury shopping. So lots and lots of shops with like upper high end watches and bags that are so expensive that the cast members have gloves on. They're handling them with gloves. To me, that seemed like really underutilized space, because there are a few little stores, but the one big store where you're going to buy merchandise is called Mickey's Mainsail. It's a long, skinny shop, and it was packed. I mean, the cruises are only 3 and 4 days. People are picking up like any sort of cruise stuff. It was packed pretty much every time that I was in there. Where these other stores, nobody was in them. Like one person was buying a $50,000 watch.
Oosh.
So
Michelle, you just said something, and I just realized. So on, let's say, the left side of the ship, the starboard side of the ship, I guess,
port.
the port side
You
was where
explained to me how I could figure that out.
The port side was where the jewelry and
I don't remember.
Well,
anyway,
but one side of the ship, Chris, is where, Diamond International and all these watches. What did I say, Michelle? I said, well, that watch must be $800. And she said, no, maybe it's $80,000,
no, or 50,000.
But the jewelry stores, the watches, the other, and the big bags, those stores seem to have a larger footprint. They seem to be wider. On the other side was, Mickey's Mainsail, which would be like the Emporium in the Magic Kingdom. And that's where it was really tight. And that's where we had the masks made tightly on our faces and everything. And it was very, very interesting how they had more stores on the Wish than they did on the Fantasy. However, I thought that they had a waste of too many stores on the Wish. They didn't need all those stores. I think a few more maybe Disney-oriented stores would have been better. Maybe even something like a Disney Vacation Club / annual pass holder store would have been better, because that half the people on the ship were either annual pass holders or they were Disney Vacation Club members. But it just seemed that those stores just
It seems odd to me that you have people who are going on cruises willing to spend $50,000 on a watch while you're sitting there. Like, I mean,
spending $5,000 for a drink, so why not?
Yeah.
Right?
So a lot. I don't know. I've only been on one Royal Caribbean, but they have those shops, and I guess it's a thing. Like Gucci bags and Tag Heuer watches, and so we didn't step foot in those. But I will say the first day that I got there, I didn't actually notice it because it's sort of a hole in the wall, but that Star Wars bar had a huge line, and I thought there's no way we're just going to write that off. There's no way that we could get in there. Day 3 out of our 4 days, I happened to notice the person at the front, and I just said, how do we do this? Can we get on a wait list? And she said, oh no, you can come in right now. Let me just check. And you go in, and the door sort of goes. And she said, oh no, you can. There's a rule, you can only stay for 45 minutes. But we went in there, and it was half full. I was really, really surprised because I thought we'll never get in here. So we thought you'd be interested in the Star Wars bar, but there's a lot of different bars and venues. I will say that one of the things I like about the Fantasy and other ships is that the adults area is all in one part of the ship, and that you can go there and go to all the different bars that you want to go to, or see comedians or whatever you're doing. And in the Wish, it's sort of spread out everywhere, that everybody is everywhere. So one night we were at there's like the champagne bar, which they have on every ship, which is called, what's it called on the Fantasy?
Ooh La La.
Ooh La La. And there's another one on other ships. But anyway, it's called Nightingales on the Wish. It's like right in the main area, so kids can walk in, and so everything, it's not as separated, and that was one of the appeals for us.
Do they kick the kids out if they come in?
I'm not
No,
really
they were
sure. The guy was singing like 70s hits, like the Piano Man, and it was excellent. But they have another venue called the Bayou, which is kind of like the Frog Princess. And it was wonderful, but it's sort of in the middle of the ship, so people are walking by. It's kind of like the way they set it up, it's like a mall area where there might be a little bar that has entertainment. That's
Like
the
a
sort
food
of
court
the
almost.
feel, yeah. So I don't know where I was going with any of that, but
So
the
it was
Star Wars,
commingling with kids.
it was commingling with a lot of kids. The Star Wars bar had kids in it, which is fine. It was really cool. The behind the bar is a video screen that every 7 minutes you go into light speed,
Hyperspeed, yeah.
and you switch to a different place. However, there wasn't much more to see or do. The drinks I love. I'm a member of the Skywalker's Vineyard. They had Skywalker Rosé. They decanted it in a really fun special thing. I didn't think the drinks there were that expensive, and we did see the $5,000 drink. And I asked our waitress how many they had sold. So we were on the 20th sailing, and she said they had sold 1 to 3 a week. And I said, what do you think about that? And she said, I just can't believe they have to give us $900 in tips. So she was sort of incredulous about it.
So the $5,000 drink is really $5,900.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Yep. But she said, oh yeah, well, I sold one yesterday. So it was there in the back. You could see the container for it. It's like, oh, well, it wasn't, I expected more theming. I expected more pizzazz. There are some creatures sort of like, they look like they're in formaldehyde or something like that. And the music is Star Wars-y. But I thought, one and done. I don't need to come back here again. It didn't rock my world. What did you think, Mike?
Yeah, I was underwhelmed by it. I thought it was going to be a little bit more themed. The biggest thing, I guess, was the video screen behind the bar. Every once in a while, it would take off, and you'd go light speed, and that was it. So that was very much a one and done kind of experience for me. But getting to Michelle's point, I had that written as a con, is that they were the adult area was not set off, and there was also something. The Fantasy has several lounges, at least 2, maybe 3, where you could do something like the D lounge for bingo and other things, and then there was another lounge where you could have a hypnotist or whatever. There seemed to be just one lounge in, what was that one called?
Luna.
The Luna Lounge. And the thing was, Chris, that was the only lounge.
It was a 2-level too.
Yeah, it was 2-level. That they used that for bingo. They used that for a singer.
Singers.
They used that for games and everything. And it just seemed that they just crunched everything in there. And one of the things we noticed is that, unlike the Fantasy, the Wish their schedule of events, they never really got off on time.
Yeah.
They were always late by 10 or 15 minutes.
Like
So
they were still figuring it out.
right. So if you wanted to see this performer, this singer, so Michelle Knight was her Knight. She was in Grease on Broadway. She was Voices of Liberty. She also played Dory at Finding Nemo at Walt Disney World. She performed, but she came on late. A lot of things came on late, so that was kind of a weird thing, because after 20 sailings, you would think that they would have had that figured out. But I think it's because they crunched too much into that one lounge. But that was a con I had. Do you think we should get into the dining rooms?
Yeah, I think the dining rooms. Why don't you start?
So there are, besides the elegant restaurants, there was an Enchanté restaurant and Apollo restaurant.
Apollo Steakhouse.
Yeah, Apollo Steakhouse. Apollo was on all the ships. A little stray here. Our best meals on the Fantasy were the Apollo dinner
Apollo's
and the
amazing.
Apollo brunch, which is not like the old time brunch, but we thought it was better. Anyways, they have 3 main dining rooms in the on the Wish. One is called, it's sort of a double. It's called 1929,
1928.
28, and was it called Walt Disney something or other? No, so 1928, and it's basically the dining room of a 1928 cruise ship.
When Disney started, when
Disney-
Roy and Walt started.
Yeah, and it was very stressful because, number one, the tables were close together, and they had us sitting with 4 other people. So we had to quickly say, no, that's not going to work, and that was changed. But that was
but let me just chime in. In the past, we had that happen once, and we changed it, and they changed it for the whole cruise. This time, every time we sat down, we had to find the head server and change it. So every single night we didn't know if we were gonna. And I was talking to a lady. She was in the same position. She was cruising with her son, and we were actually making small talk. But we were both saying, we're on vacation. We don't want to make small talk. We want to enjoy the people or the person that we're with. We don't really want to say, hey, where are you from? And this type of stuff. So she was having to do the same thing every night. We saw some other couples too. So most nights we were changed to a table where like it was a table for 6 and we were the only ones there. But every night we're like, oh, we're going to have to sit with strangers. And it's not that we're antisocial. We just didn't want to. We didn't want to do that. So the tables are incredibly close to each other. Like you can barely walk it. Even the wait staff was having a hard time walking in between. So that 1928 has a lot of animation stuff. It has like in cases, it had things that were sort of from Disney history. I don't think Mike saw. He's looking at me like, what are you talking about? But anyway, go ahead. So
that was the least of that was my least favorite dining hall. And I'm glad it was the first one because then we got better and better. The second dining hall we ate at was Marvel themed, and that hall was that dining room was just the walls were all video screens, and I don't want to really I don't want to be a spoiler.
Well, just say you're helping Ant-Man solve a problem.
So Ant-Man and Captain America and who else? The Wasp.
Yeah.
And they're involved with people on the table, and there are things that you interact with them, and we thought it was pretty cool, and I think you would have liked it, Chris. You get to see certain Marvel movies too, bits and pieces of them. The final dining room was something for the kids of all ages. It was called Arendelle. And we all know where Arendelle comes from. And we knew that there was going to be a song that we were going to hear. And that one was very interesting because you walk down this long hall and
Like you're in the castle.
Right. This is not a spoiler, but if you remember for the first time in forever in Frozen, Anna is singing and she's walking through and she's dancing and she's singing, and you see all these paintings. Those paintings are on the wall of this hallway that you walk down. And I don't think I would spoil it by saying that this particular dining hall it's like a theater in the round, and you're entertained. And that I'll just leave it
Yeah,
at that.
it's Frozen 2. It's mostly Frozen 2 songs.
Yeah, well, there was a
but
Frozen one song.
The entertainers were great. There was a violinist, a guitar player, and a singer, and then other Frozen characters came in. I thought it was great. I'm not a Frozen fan. I cannot stand Let It Go. If I hear it, I'm just like, it's like nails on the chalkboard for me. But I thought they were great. They were really excellent, and they came out into the. I will say that the way that they themed it is that it's Anna's and
Like a wedding.
what's his name?
Gustav.
No, not good. Anna and
Gustav.
I'm sure people are yelling
Christoph.
like
Christoph?
Christoph. Yeah, it's their
Christoph.
anniversary.
How could you forget that name?
It's their engagement party. So the whole thing is that so they actually come around to the tables and say thank you for coming, just like it's a. So you get to even the adults. They say thank you for coming. So
Do you have to give a wedding gift?
I think we already did paying for that cruise.
Yeah, I was gonna
say. So I would agree that I like those two the best, Mike. I think, having done the animator's palette many times now on the fantasy and other ships, that's kind of, I'm done with that. But I would do the Marvel one. It didn't like rock my world, but they were
Thanks.
definitely fun. The service was great on both ships. Excellent. I will say that one of the places that we liked the best was the Marceline Market, which if you have been on other ships, it's called Cabanas. It's sort of like the buffet. And it's set up like a marketplace in Marceline, Missouri. So it's kind of like the different areas are different. The different seating areas look like different shops. Like there's a flower shop and stuff like that. But the food was pretty darn good in that. We don't usually eat breakfast, but we're there for lunch most days. But they also have this thing on near the pools called the Festival of Foods, which is sort of like, how would you say it was themed? Like food trucks, I guess you would say.
And there were like 3 or 4 different things.
There was a Mexican food
Cantina.
There was just hamburgers and hot dogs, and there was a barbecue place.
Pizza.
Yeah, the pizza was amazing. That was like from a pizza oven, really, really good. So it's kind of places that you can go and get other food, but the place that's kind of like a Chipotle grill was excellent. We went there twice, I think, at least twice.
Yes.
So the food I think was definitely better than on the other cruise ship for me, anyway.
So rather don't want to take up too much time as it's getting over, but go over a few things that Michelle and I noticed that between the Fantasy and the Wish. It just seemed that there was more space in the cabins, and it's because they did a few things. They adjusted like the desk a little bit. They moved one area a little closer to the deck, to the veranda. They have a new light package in the cabin, so the closets have a different light cabin. The light switches are now in the shower and in the toilet. You also have a night light that you can put on. The shower is a much better shower. It's a little bit bigger, not that much, but it's a glass door instead of climbing into a tub with a curtain. The TV was taken from the desk and put on the wall. It's a bigger TV. The TV is probably 3 times the size.
In front of the bed.
In front of the bed, yeah. And speaking of the beds were higher for luggage. We had 2 huge pieces of luggage, and we barely fit them under the Fantasy beds, but they fit very well under the Wish beds. There's a desk there, and on the Fantasy, the desk had a chair with a back, and that made it hard to walk through to the veranda. But the Wish just had a stool, sort of a hassock kind of a chair, and I thought that was a good thing. One of the things I wanted to mention is that a big difference between the Fantasy and the Wish is that on the Fantasy you had basically 6 elevators on every deck. On the 6 in the front, 6 in the middle, and 6 in the back. 6 shafts. But on the Wish there were 8, And that made a big difference because if you remember, Michelle, how many times did we get into a empty elevator on Fantasy? Hardly ever.
Can I tease you about the elevators?
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So it'll say, deck 8. And it was a British woman's voice. And Mike was trying to convince me that it was Mary Poppins. It wasn't Mary Poppins.
At least he tried.
Yeah. I said, really? You think that sounds like it wasn't? But go ahead, Mike.
The veranda was much bigger on
Yeah,
the Wish
yeah.
than the Fantasy. That was something. Let's see. I wanted to mention a few other things. Very different. The big difference, one of the biggest differences I noticed in the ships, we're on the same deck 10. On deck 10 in the Fantasy, it was very noisy. Very noisy. Deck 10 on the Wish, not noisy at all. We were too tired to go up to watch the fireworks on Pirate Night. We never heard the fireworks. That's how quiet it was. I thought that was very good. The other thing is that I think there's a larger guest services area on the Wish than the Fantasy. I had to go change a few things in both cases, and I thought that the Wish guest services area was very good.
Although packed.
All packed.
Yeah.
We mentioned, Michelle, did we mention they had 2 movie theaters on
Yeah.
the
2
Wish?
movie theaters, smaller ones. The adult area, the adult pool area was much, much smaller. We went up twice, couldn't even find a place to sit. So we ended up sitting like just on a deck chair somewhere else. And the shows were excellent shows. There was a show, what was the first one called?
It was Goofy's Adventures or whatever.
Sea
Goofy's
Adventures.
but-
Yeah, it was
Oh
really
my God,
good.
it was so much better than I thought because
Yeah.
they jumped into the legacy songs and,
Yeah, and there were other shows too. The pool area for families, more pools, but I would not get into any of those pools. I never did. They
You're
were
in
just
luck.
they were
You're in
just
luck.
packed. They were packed. I mean, we could go other places. We went on beaches and things like that. But we took a tour, again, Amanda's recommendation of the kids areas, and oh my God, they were amazing. The Star Wars area, there was an Arendelle area. There was a whole like Imagineering area where they had 3D printer, and Mike and I were playing with the hand washers. It sounds ridiculous, but the hand washers were so cool. You stand there and there are 2 cylinders and you put your hands in, and then water and soap hit it from every direction. And then you take and it times you. So, you're washing your hands, and then it like cleans your hands off. Like if I were a kid, I'd want to do that every 5 minutes.
I can see kids
Car
never
wash for your
li-
hands.
Oh
never-
yeah, exactly. That's what it was. It was so cool.
I can see kids never ever leaving that area.
Yeah.
So many things.
They had them when you came in. There was like a 2-level. You could go from the main lobby and take a slide down to the kids area. You didn't have to walk down the stairs. Too many things to tell you. It was just so, even the bathrooms are themed really cool, but we spent a lot of time there. What else do we want to talk about?
It seemed to me that there were a lot more meet and greets for characters on on the Wish than Fantasy. I think we pretty much covered everything, Michelle. I think one of the things that
Want to do tips?
we wanted to mention is that, going on 2 different Disney cruise ships in such a close period of time, we noticed a few things, and I noticed things that were a little bit different from the last time we went, but it also reinforced things that I think are good tips for those who have never cruised, especially on a Disney cruise, that we may want to mention. One of the things I thought this time around, I don't know if everything seemed to be more organized and controlled. I remember previous cruises with in long lines or whatever, but everything was just spaced apart so that I never felt like I was in a big long line.
I will tell you that they tell you when you check in what time you're supposed to come to the port. Do not come earlier. We were given the advice of coming earlier, which we had done in the past. Our check-in time wasn't until 2:30 for the first cruise, and we got there at 11:30. And our porter guy had to like bamboozle the Disney people just to let us park. They were gonna tell us to leave and drive around, but even if you get there and we were able to get in, they will not board you until your boarding group. So for the second one, we were smarter and we arrived at the time that they told us to. But before, you used to be able to come on a little early. Not anymore. Not anymore. What else, Mike?
One thing we do, and I think it's one of the best things we do, is when we book our cruise, we also included our tips. So those tips are included so that at the end of the cruise, when you're handing off to your host, hostess, your head server, your server, your assistant server. I mean, it's all taken care of. It's not like you have to, reach in your pocket and hope you have cash, so you can do that. So I thought that was good. Michelle, what else?
Yeah, make people know this. Make your reservations if you want to do any restaurants the earliest possible time. We just wandered. I don't think I even really understood the layout too well, but a little bit after 4 days.
took a while.
We didn't even get off the ship. We didn't get off. We had just been to Castaway Cay, and Mike has some ambulatory issues at this time, so we didn't get off in Nassau. We didn't get out, so we just stayed on the ship and took advantage of the things that were on the ship, and that was a good idea.
Yeah, and it's good to also, if you don't know now, to understand what fore and aft and starboard and port is. It's back, forward, left and right. So I think that helps to make it easy to navigate through the ship. One of the things I forgot to mention about guest services is that I had to do some things with guest services, and if you can hold off until the first day,
The second day,
especially if you're at a port, I would not go to guest services for at least 24 to 36 hours. If you can hold off, going to them, because the lines are they're just crazy, just crazy. The only couple things that you want to be able to communicate with your cabin mate or your friends or fellow cruisers. So make sure that the Disney app is loaded on your phone, and that you can. It's good to try communicating to make sure you can chat. What else? We brought water bottles on board, which I thought was helpful. We brought Yetis on board and filled them up with water, whatever, soda water. So that was good. The other thing that I think, Michelle, you mentioned, you can bring
each person
can bring
over 18.
2 bottles of wine or 2 bottles of champagne, or you can pay an arm and a leg.
So which ship did you like better? Which cruise did you prefer? Which experience?
I like the length of the Fantasy. I like 7 days.
It's not the size of your ship; it's how you use it.
Yeah, I like the Wish just because it's different. But we did neglect to say one thing that happened on the Fantasy,
yes.
which was Mike likes to play bingo. Or the last cruise, he got onto bingo, and I'm sort of like, whatever. But we played bingo and we won $622.
Nice.
So when you play, there's a pot at the end of each game, and they don't tell you how much you won until the end. So there was one game that we were in, there were 8 people won, so they split like $500. Like, oh yay, 500. So at the end, I was the only one who stood up. They said, yes, you did win bingo, and then they said it's $622 and it's all yours. So
Nice.
that helped to offset some of the spending.
Did you go right over to that $50,000 watch store?
It went definitely on the bill, and we came away with less of a bill. So that's
Nice.
that.
All right. So it was a good experience. You liked both in different ways.
We spent a lot of time just on the veranda, drinking coffee in our own little space,
Sure.
drinking a glass of champagne. I just love that private space. So, but yeah, it was good. The service, there's a contrast for me between the cruise service and what we experienced at Walt Disney World. It's just so much better on the cruise.
Do you think you're going to transition now more towards cruisers than going to the parks? Do you think that's something in your future, or is it just you're going to do both still?
I think personally, one of the places I always enjoy and I enjoyed very much is Bay Lake Towers. We just stayed there for 2 days. Just spending time around that resort, going to the pool, walking over to the Grand Floridian. We didn't feel a need to go into the parks as much. So enjoying other things. We didn't even talk about this. We can do another podcast. We spent, again, a lot of time at Disney Springs, meeting friends, really easy at Disney Springs, having dinners, having cocktails. I do want to talk about in another podcast our Guardians experience, but for things like that, I'll go in, but it just wasn't something that I felt like I needed to do all the time.
In the next show, we'll talk more about the parks, although I do want to mention that this probably was the first, I'd say this Disney trip, without question, I had I saw less fireworks than any other trip. It just didn't have, they just couldn't pull me in. We saw Enchantment and something. I was waiting for something and it didn't happen. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris, but they redid Enchantment a little bit. They redid a little bit of the beginning of it. It just didn't pull me in. What's the other?
Harmonious.
I don't know.
So memorable, you forgot the name.
Yeah, and you can just forget, Disney
Other
Hollywood
parks.
Studios.
Yeah.
That they should have kept.
That was horrible.
They should have kept the Star Wars one there. So I don't know. I think the fireworks just wasn't magical this time around.
We'll have to get back into that. We'll start talking about the parks and
Yeah.
your experience over there in the next show. So, but I think any other final words about the cruises other than you're glad you went back to back?
I just want to reiterate that I think people should look at the value. I mean, if you want interaction with the characters, if you want 24/7 Disney, if you want to feel like you're in your luxury hotel, that's also a little bit of a theme park, and you want to get entertained and you want to gain weight, go on a Disney cruise. I really think that it's this comes from someone who, no, I don't want to go on a cruise. I remember Becky Menken said, I'll convince you. And I sent Becky a photograph with me with my gold lanyard, which means I'm on my 5th cruise. So yeah, I think it's worth a try, at least a try. I would not go on a 7-day right off the bat. I'd go on a 3 or a 4-day just to get a taste and see what happens.
Yeah, Becky's still trying to work me on that one, but it's just not happening.
Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck, Becky. So, all right. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Mickey Miles and More. If you want to reach out to us, send us a message on Twitter at Mickey Miles Pod. For Dr. Michelle Scribner, Mike Scopa, I'm Chris Eliopoulos. We'll see you on the road and in the park.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Mickey Miles and More podcast. For all of us here at the Mickey Miles and More podcast, this is Rick Gregg saying thanks for listening and all your support. And until next time, we'll see you on the road.